Okay, we have time on the clock. So welcome everyone. The title of the talk is too long to fit on the title. But the idea is that we are telling about how we built or are building a system for deploying lots of situational awareness tools or tilannekuvajärjestelmä for when shit hits the fan or kun pilliin vihelletään, as the Finnish expression goes. This is all public stuff, but it's not advertised. And yes, we did get a permission to talk about this in this way. Whether the video will ever be published remains to be seen. Someone else will have the final say on that. We are volunteers. We do not work for the Finnish Defence Forces. We definitely do not speak for the Finnish Defence Forces. And yeah, we can't tell you a bunch of things that Defence Forces has told us. We specifically can't tell you what we think that they think. Because someone thinks that it's much too close to speaking for the Finnish Defence Forces. So let's be super clear about things being our opinions.
And jokes are our own.
Yeah, the jokes are our own. All the stupid shit is our own. If you ask the wrong questions, we will not answer you. We will point you out to the counterintelligence people. So, yeah. But anyway, we personally think that we have been doing things that are immensely valuable, and the potential impact for when properly deployed is amazing. There are some operational security and signals intelligence things that have been taken into account, but we will not be talking about the things that have been taken into account. And yeah, there will be some Finnish terms at some point. We will try to explain them, but we won't translate them. In the demo part, you will need a working knowledge of Finnish to follow the demo. It's an interactive demo, you can participate. But if you don't, well, tough luck. Okay, so I'm Rambo. Pink Hat Hackers, Helsinki Hack Lab, electronics, Python, stuff, generalist. And yeah, you can find me in the community village around the Hack Lab booth if and when you want to come talk to me afterwards. And he will be introduced later. Okay, we have a short timeline. Around, well, a year and a half ago, the project starts. There is this PV-arki normi. So PV-arki, official thing, a project called Arjen välineet puolustusvoimissa. Bring your own devices in the Defence Forces. And in the autumn, I get recruited actually to do mumble stuff, because at that point people thought that voice comms would be great. And yeah, and voice comms would be great, but it turns out that maybe it wasn't the greatest thing that should be first focused on. And we were talking, the Azure thing, we'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah. At first we thought that, yeah, we will do this in Azure Kubernetes. It will be great. We will do this the perfect, most cloud-native way ever. And yeah, turns out that Azure Network Load Balancer can't do TCP and UDP on the same port number, which of course Mumble requires, because the TCP port is the command and control, and UDP on the same port number is the voice over IP. And yeah, it worked very fine on my home Kubernetes cluster. I tried to deploy it to AKS, nothing works. So yeah, we had to pivot. But on the other hand, on December we are in a kertausharjoitus, refresher training, doing work on this stuff, and some other people who have been working on Tack, which will be introduced later, convince us that this is the real killer application. This is what we should be doing. And so we start pivoting that way. So at the change of the year, we do first prototypes for deployment systems and also enrollment systems, how to enroll users into it. Then we get a real user experience designer to help us. And this is amazing what a real user experience designer can do compared to developer colors and so on. I can't emphasize how much better things got when we got the real user experience designer for a while to help us. Anyway, with the help of that guy, we can do a proof of concept where we have 100 random reservists who are probably a bit older people sometimes, because now due to geopolitical situations, also the older people get invited to refresher trainings. And we can enroll a company of 100 people into using Tack in about 45 minutes, which is not a small feat. And after the proof of concept is done, we start making a design for a more scalable approach on how to handle more products, like Tack is one product, then maybe Mumble later is another product, and so on. Also other there are lots of hopes and dreams of what other softwares could be deployed using this system, but those products will need their own developer teams to maintain the deployment systems and the integrations. So the core volunteer group will only do the actual deployment stuff, the main architecture, and Tack as an example product. And it was chosen as an example product because it's a bitch to set up and integrate with. More about that later. In the summer, we start working on the MVP architecture. It is almost done now. Everyone hopes that it would be actually done, but the problem is that we're volunteers. We couldn't really organize more kertausharjoitus so that we could just order people, like send letters to people's work that we need this guy. But he should be working with us. No, we need this guy. Too bad. He's now coming to undisclosed location in the middle of Finland. But yeah, anyway, we already have a way to deploy like someone needs to pull the trigger to do the deployments, but we have a way to deploy as many environments as the Azure subscription will let us. We haven't really tried the limits yet, and someone will be angry if we do. It's not free to set them up.
Yeah, in the end, most likely you and us, because we're going to pay the bills.
Well, I mean, no. Well, well, I mean, we might get in trouble, but
yeah.
It's unlikely that we will actually pay the bills. But the trouble might be the kind of trouble that the defense forces can get you in.
Not much.
Okay, Tack, or Team Awareness Kit, which is the politically correct name for the civilian version, or Tactical Assault Kit as it was originally developed as. I love the slogan, never a fair fight, and it really is amazing situational awareness tool. So the US Air Force originally developed this, and now it's the Tack Product Center in the US government Department of Defense that does the development. But this tool is very nice. at least for the user. The official server is in Java. The protocol cursor on target is in theory open and documented. There are some implementations in Python and something else, but the problem is that they implement only a subset of the protocol. So yeah, so we have to run the official server to get maximum compatibility with clients, with possible other integration stuff, and so on. They do publish it as GPL, at least a subset of the actual code base. The problem is that they do it the most horrible way you can do open source, which is having 20,000 changed lines in one commit, like G thanks. But at least we can read the source code and understand how things are supposed to work, because the documentation isn't always great, especially for our weird use cases, or at least weird for the what they think it should be used, how it should be used. We use it differently. I started by making a build of the open source version, since we weren't quite sure if we can actually distribute the pre-built packages. Turns out we can. So we now distribute the pre-built packages from tack.gov. So whenever they release a new package, we download the package and put it into our Docker containers and so on. And the Docker containers are in Docker Hub. So basically, there's some public repositories in github.com/pvarki where you can play around, have a Docker composition on your virtual machine, fire up all of this that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and signing up for the pre-built binaries was kind of a funny process, as it's only that please contact us, and we tried to figure out that who is going to be the one that sends the email that, hi, we would like to use this.
No, you can sign up. You can just sign up. If you don't want the server actually is the same for everyone, but the clients, the official client, the Attack Android Tactical Assault Kit, has 3 versions. That's the civilian version that you get from the App Store. It has the government version that is available to friendly governments, which is now us. Actually, it was us already before, but anyway, the problem is that I am not a government employee, so I am not allowed to have access to those binaries. Then there's the military version, which is available to NATO allies, so now us. But since deploying those binaries to users, especially on users bring your own devices, is more than a little bit questionable how you do it, and how do you control that the binaries don't get distributed to wrong people and so on. I'm pretty sure we are going to go with the civilian version for the foreseeable future. And the inevitable question, since you have so many problems and stories about Azure, why did you choose Azure? Well, we didn't. Someone else made the choice. Someone we can't argue with. And yeah, even though we have support from a large Finnish consultancy company and Microsoft itself, there's just so many problems with Azure. Starting with the network load balancer, but there's a bunch of other issues. He will talk about more about that. Okay, then we have the main idea of how this thing is supposed to work in workflow order. So we have an app store that someone from defense forces generally uses. So this is a persistent resource. We have a few persistent resources, and then we have temporary resources on per deployment. And basically they will go and say that, okay, I want I want Tack, then I want something else and something else. Please deploy. And they will also get told that it will cost you this much. Like someone will hold you responsible for this amount of expense when you do this. And then there's a random pet name generated, and then we get to Kraftwerk, which is our state management system, which extends on Pulumi. He will talk more about it. And we have a lot of old Terraform stuff that is basically auto-converted into Pulumi formats. And that will fire up a deployment first. It will deploy Rasenmäher, because Nurmipora was unacceptable. And Rasenbörer would have been too obvious. So yeah, this is the user enrollment tool. And this is a temporary resource. Basically everything from now on is something that is spun up by Kraftwerk for a particular deployment. And as soon as certain basic initialization stuff is done, it's all decoupled from the persistent resources. So if an adversary does something horrible to the persistent resources, these deployments still stay up as long as the Azure availability zone stays up. And the users can access mobile internet. But turns out mobile internet is a lot more resilient than we thought. Just about everything is done with this. And we use MTLS certs. Right now, Rasenmäher will issue the certificate. In the hope we try to develop a native application so that the private keys for the user's device never leave the device. But that's something we need developer help for. And anyway, once Rasenmäher itself has initialized itself, it will inform Kraftwerk again that you can spin up the products, because the products need to have access to fully working Rasenmäher for them to do their job. So then the products, in our case, it's only Tack server for now. In the future, it will be other things. It will spin up itself, and then it will spin up the integration API with Rasenmäher, and it will start by getting a signature from Rasenmäher for its MTLS sort. Kraftwerk has issued it a single-use JSON token, and then it will get the CA chain and so on, and it will use. From now on, the communication between Rasenmäher and the products is MTLS only. And at this point, tilauspalvelu has been polling the Rasenmäher health check endpoint. And once it knows that, okay, all the products are up, Rasenmäher is up, and it can then generate, it can sign a JSON web token, single-use token, use it to generate a single-use login code for an administrator user. And this login code will be then delivered to whoever will be the administrator. And it usually isn't the one who is doing the ordering. It's because the one who doing the ordering is basically the komppanian päällikkö. And the actual enrollment stuff, etc., is delegated to someone much lower in the food chain. Anyway, then we enter the enrollment flow, and we have already signed ourselves in as administrators. But if you want to play along, there is a link you can open. It will contain a link to a enrollment flow that you can use. And then we will be approving your enrollments, or he will be approving your enrollments as they come along. In general, this is like a QR code that is shown to the people you want to enroll, and then but you can also send them a link. So the basic idea is that you either show them the QR code on your mobile device, like I want to enroll you into my deployment, read this QR code, or you print it on the wall in a suitable place and show them that, okay, you enroll with this QR code, Then they do their enrollment thing, and then they show you their validation code that, okay, I am this dude. And even though there were much complaints that this validation flow is slowing things down and we don't like it and so on, that is something we don't compromise on. Every user must be validated by an administrator with the code. Though now we just, if you put your codes there on the Etherpad, we will enroll you in.
Yeah, so if you do the enrollment, you get a QR code like this. So you put your call sign in, and then in the Etherpad we need the hyväksyntäkoodi as well, which is below your.
Yeah, there's also a link like copy link for the QR code. You can just paste the QR code link, and it can be done. But we need both the call sign and the approval code at the moment. Improvement so that you can just type in the approval code without knowing the call sign it belongs to is coming later. Okay, and then once you get enrolled in, you will see results of some endpoints in the Rasenmäher API, so it will list all the products that are available in this deployment, a short description of the products, and once you click on the product, okay, I want to start using this product, it will get personalized to you, user instructions, and whatever viestiperusteet communication package you need for that product. And that will be fetched from the integration API for that particular product. And it will, Rasenmäher will give the product integration API your user public certificate so that the product knows who you are. And then you will get your communications packages, and then you get things going.
I like your call signs, by the way.
I don't see them, but well, I will see them once you finish enrolling. Great. Okay, then there's some lower level details. So Rasenmäher itself is actually a collection of a whole bunch of things. There's Cloudflare SSL, which was chosen because it seemed to have a usable REST API. It turns out the REST API is much less usable than we thought. So we had to anyway make a Python-based fast API thing that calls some command line tools for CFSSL. So if we have some step CA people here, we might want to get someone to switch us over to step CA, for example. Because Cloudflare seems to basically have abandoned the open source release of CFSSL. So there's no point in making any contributions to the upstream. It has like tons of open pull requests that have been open for a year and so on. So step CA seems to be a much more receptive upstream for improvements that we would like to see. Then it has the REST API, of course. That is the core of everything. API first. Then there's a React-based UI, which is what you see with what the users see. There's an engine access reverse proxy. We might be switching to Caddy, depending on, it was just like, these are basically preferences of people who were setting up things as like what did we know at the moment or didn't know, or what seemed to be easiest at the moment. There is a Keycloak, basically a Keycloak instance is being spun up as part of Rasenmäher Docker composition, but it's not used for anything. But it will be used for managing groups, etc. And also it will have OpenLDAP backend for things that can and want to use LDAP for stuff. For example, the Tack server can use LDAP backing for users. though it remains to be seen how well that plays with the MTLS-based thing that we do. Tack kind of wants you to do so that you have your users in the LDAP, then you give your users a username and password, and then they use the username and password to enroll via the application, and then the Tack server will enroll them a certificate, and then it will be MTLS. The problem is that that certificate is handled by Tack server. But when we want to revoke a user for whatever reason, usually it's because they lost their device or they died, we want to revoke them once from one location, and that location is Rasenmäher. So we can't let whatever products handle their own user enrollment flows. It all needs to be tied to the central certificate authority. Nginx in this case terminates MTLS for the Rasenmäher API, and it does the certificate checking, etc. And then we have our inframaster.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I can see about the approvals.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, so Henri, I'm the one of the infra guys in the project team, so glad to be here. So Eero spoke a little bit about how we were doing things and how we thought we would be doing things. So we started out with containers, as they're like fairly easy to run, and all of the like people involved were fairly familiar with them. So it was a nice starting ground. And Eero mentioned AKS, so we figured that okay, we would like something sophisticated as we're gonna need scale at some point, but I think it was a bit of a, let's say, misstep from our part. As we're volunteers and Kubernetes and not that much time, it's not a really, like, let's say, viable solution at the moment. So then, okay, there's Azure App Service, which we could use to run containers. We use it at work quite a bit, and it has it's stable and okay, but let's say it's on the, like, not legacy side, but it's not the newest and shiniest thing, so we decided to opt that out. Then there's Azure Container Instances. No one knew what they are or how they work, so we just skipped those to be safe. So what we did, virtual machines. Yeah, Eero mentioned the TCP UDP support on the network load balancer on the product we started with, so this kind of worked out of the box, so we didn't need load balancing in front. Virtual machines won't win us any like architecture awards in the cloud scene, but thankfully we're not aiming for any, so we just need something that works, and we need to keep the velocity up. And then the like ball rolls forward, and we get into a situation where Azure Container Apps comes to general availability. Yeah, it works. It's something that we could use because it's Kubernetes based, but we don't need to figure out Kubernetes underneath. So it was a kind of a, like something in between, which was nice. And usually the thing with hyperscalers is that when something comes to general availability, it might like be available, but the like availability itself might be something, or the support was quite lacking on the infrastructure as code side. So we had to iron out quite a bit of kinks and do some manual work to get it up and running and get all the certificates and stuff generated from Azure, so we wouldn't have to handle all those ourselves. And slowly we're like moving these virtual machine deployments to container apps if the product itself fits. So Tack is something that is, at least seems to be a good fit, so we could go into that and try deploying it there. We're almost there, let's say. Yeah, and about the deployments, so we started out with just Terraform and run it locally so that we can get shit done. For the MVP part, we did Azure DevOps as it was readily available with the subscriptions and the tenant we have in Azure. But in a sense, it didn't work for us because we have very like spiky workloads, or we like need concurrency for a weekend when we're doing stuff, and then for 2 weeks no one uses it. So the like pricing didn't really fit our use case. And then we got permission and some money to get GitHub licenses or proper GitHub, so we could use GitHub Actions. And we're those again slowly migrating to GitHub, so we can get rid of some of our already incurred technical debt, but we're slowly chipping away at it. And for the like Terraform part, Rambo mentioned that we're using Pulumi, so to get some kind of like state management, proper state management. So we used to use Azure DevOps to run Terraform stacks and destroy them, and that's a really hacky way to like manage the state of the Terraform configurations. So we built the Kraftwerk on top of Pulumi to get some kind of like, it's not the, let's say, best or most sophisticated solution either, but at least it's going in the right direction, that we have like the state is somewhere and it's properly managed and not just a file somewhere. And hopefully we don't lose the references. So this is in the right direction. But then converting the old stuff to the new stuff, Pulumi supports this like conversion of Terraform stuff into like Pulumi. So it could work, but it's not always like a bit same on the hyperscaler side, that they say that it's supported and it works, but there's edge cases which don't.
Yeah, well,
almost everyone is in.
Almost everyone whose code is actually
working, yeah, is in. So now, if you've completed the enrollment, I have my phone somewhere here. Let's see if there's people on Tack.
Yeah, have you? It takes a while to install the application, but let's see. Not yet seeing people actually enroll to Tack.
Yeah, someone just popped in.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah, there's some.
At least one person was able to do the enrollment flow to the end, and we can say that we didn't have a demo effect, so yay for me and for you.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll be leaving that Tack instance running for the rest of the day, so you can play with it if you want to.
Yeah, you can spy on your colleagues where they are going and what they're doing. So
yeah, extra fun to spy on the sotilaspoliisi.
Yeah.
Doing like, okay, they're having a break at McDonald's.
And now they are speeding, driving 60 where you can only drive 40, so.
Okay, but yeah, it's a volunteer project. We need more volunteers. You don't have to be in the reserve, but it will make things simpler, especially if you are working for someone else instead of being an entrepreneur, where it kind of sucks more when you get the order to show up at an undisclosed location. But if you're working for someone else, there are very few downsides to getting ordered to join a kertausharjoitus. You do have to be able to handle Finnish. That is, as you can see, the enrollment stuff is only in Finnish. I'm not sure when it will be translated. Definitely will have to be translated into Swedish at some point because it's an official language. Probably also to English because we probably want to introduce this tool to our allies as well. At some point, we have a Discord community. Come talk to us to get an invite. We are not just pasting the invite link here. And there are some roles that we really need. So we need people who want to really focus on the Tack integration and either already know about Tack, how it works and so on, or are willing to put in a lot of effort into learning. There are some people that are like very competent users of Tack and administrators of Tack as Department of Defense intended it to be used. But since we do things a bit differently for the enrollment, etc., and these are temporary resources instead of permanent servers, etc., those people don't really, like, they can help you a lot with like specific questions and so on, and good use cases, but they are not suitable for doing this actual integration work, and they don't have the time for it either. But yeah, Tack is Java. All of our other integration stuff is in Python. Though, if you really want to, you can use Go or Rust. It's mostly up to you. Just don't use brainfuck or something equally esoteric, so that our bus factor again goes to 1. And if you get hit by a bus, then we are lost. DevOps, CI people, especially people with very familiar with GitHub Actions, Azure pipelines, etc. Where our DevOps guys are super busy at their day job and have limited capability of volunteering their time. Then basic QA people, like, this is a complicated system, and we have, like, Rasenmäher has like 100 unit tests, and it has a separate integration test suite that does the enrollment from like enroll admin, create invites, enroll a user, and so on, to the point that the user can download their Tack viestiperusteet. But yeah, we need more integration tests, and we definitely need more unit tests everywhere. So people who have time to do those, time to help the developers to do better tests, etc., since that's a rather specific skill as well. And we can't choose our developers maybe so that they're all super disciplined and experienced in always doing tests first, etc.
Yeah, I think the DevOps guys' product is the Kraftwerk, and 100% of unit tests pass because it's 0 out of 0. So.
Yeah. Kraftwerk is basically not Kraftwerk. Rasenmäher is basically my brainchild, so that's why it has a decent unit test coverage. Then IDP and certificate authority specialists. We basically have had the help of 2 people who are very good at this, but they are also super busy. So we need some people who really know that stuff, that have actually time to help. Then there's like basic stuff, web front-end coding, like, so that again our web front-end isn't behind 1 person or 1.5 persons. And then graphics and user experience is important. The great UX designer is an entrepreneur. He can't volunteer his time anymore, at least without some proper compensation or something. He can't afford it. So yeah, these kinds of people are needed. And we timed this almost perfectly. It's 45 seconds in our clock, which means that we have 10 minutes for questions.